If European countries are not sovereign, then why are they disagreeing with Trump's peace deal in the Ukraine war? Yeah, that's a great question, isn't it? So, why are the European nations not sovereign? Have I lost my mind when I said that the European nations, EU nations, are not sovereign? Some people will ask, has Abhijit Chavda lost his mind? He's claiming the EU nations are not sovereign nations. What is he talking about? Ha 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 ha. What does it mean to be a sovereign nation? First of all, a sovereign nation, first of all, has complete control over its borders. It can decide who comes in and who doesn't come in. It can decide who can immigrate and who is not allowed to immigrate. None of the EU nations has any control over its border, over their borders. There goes one piece of your sovereignty. Secondly, to be a sovereign nation, you need to have complete control over your laws and your policies and the policies that you implement. You decide what laws are going to be framed, what laws will be enforced, and what policies will be enforced. Your people have complete ownership over that. In the EU, none of the EU nations frame their laws. The laws come from Brussels. The policies come from Brussels. They're dictated to the nations from Brussels. So that's another piece of your sovereignty gone. Number three, a sovereign nation has complete control over its economy, which means its currency, its own currency. It should have its own currency. In the EU, none of the nations has its own currency. There's a common currency called the euro, which is a rebranded Deutsche Mark. That's another piece of your sovereignty gone. And then for a nation to be sovereign, you need to have complete control over your military. And none of the EU nations even has that. Because most of the EU nations are part of NATO. And in NATO, you don't have control over your military. So none of the EU nations are sovereign nations. And if they're also member of NATO, they are even less sovereign. And then in a sovereign nation, you have rulers or leaders who represent the people. In the EU nations, you have bureaucrats who masquerade as leaders, and they serve Brussels. They don't represent their people, and they don't serve their people. And all these EU nations are police states, where the police doesn't serve and protect the people. It enforces the writ of the bureaucrats who rule over the people. Okay? So that's the deal. That's why the European countries are not sovereign. So if they are not sovereign, why are they disagreeing with Trump, who is the president of the US, the big master, the overlord of Europe? Because since 1945, there's only been one power in Western Europe, which is the US, right? And the US is the puppet master that controls NATO as well as the EU. And the president is Trump. So why are they disagreeing with Trump? Right? That's the question. See, Trump wants to completely reshape the global order and the geopolitical balance of power. For the longest time, since 1945, the EU nations, European nations, Western European nations, have been treated like royalty. They've been given all these SOPs and all these subsidies, because of which they have been turned into welfare states. They don't pay for their military expenditure. They don't pay for defense. There's so much that is subsidized by the US, and Trump wants to end all that. So that obviously will be very shaky for Europe, and it will completely shake up these people's holdover power. These little bureaucrats who rule the EU nations, they are frightened, and they are members of the ancien regime, the old regime, which was all run by the Democrats, right? If you look at the US establishment, the so-called superficial deep state, all the bureaucrats who run the show, they're all left-leaning people. They're all people who vote for the Democrats and all. So a lot of these EU leaders, all these people, they are very strongly aligned with the American Democratic Party, not the Republican Party. They don't like the Republicans. That's another reason why they don't like Trump. So because of this, there is this big big refusal right now. There's this big resistance in the EU towards what Trump wants to do. And that's why they are disagreeing with Trump's peace deal, and they want the war in Ukraine to keep on going. And it's possible that they must be getting some benefit from the war in Ukraine. Maybe, see, the Americans have spent about 350 or maybe 400, maybe $500 billion in the war effort in Ukraine. Maybe they are getting some of that. Maybe they're getting a cut. It's possible. It's corruption. The United Nations, this organization that is supposed to maintain peace in the world, and they have peacekeeping operations and all, and they've got this huge budget in the UN, right? And you know how this budget is used? A very large portion of the United Nations budget is used for business class travel and five-star hotel stays of their bureaucrats and employees. Much of the money is wasted allegedly in this manner. This is called corruption. The EU is also allegedly super corrupt like this. So all these people, they are self-serving people. They have this big network of people who are all useless, who don't serve the people. They're all self-serving people, and they want to maintain their hold over power. And that's why they are disagreeing with Trump's peace deal and opposing Trump.